My name is Mike Ahmed, and I'm an engineer with the City of Moorhead. This presentation is meant to serve as a source of information for a street project that will take place in your neighborhood this upcoming summer. Normally, the engineering department would hold an in-person informational meeting with the residents, but this year that is not the case. In this presentation, I will give you a brief explanation of how the city selects its projects, how we decide which streets to do in our projects, and how we decide what type of work we will be doing in our projects. I will also explain the kind of work we are proposing to do in your neighborhood. And since we aren't able to do a live question and answer session, I will be going through several frequently asked questions. I will also provide contact information if you would like to provide us your feedback. You may be wondering how and why your street was chosen for improvements. There are several factors that are taken into consideration. The most significant factor is what we call a pavement condition index, or PCI for short. This allows us to create a value, or a grade, or a score as a representation of a condition of a certain road. The PCI is a numerical value with 0 being the worst and 100 being the best. 0 would mean that there is no pavement left or the road is in very, very bad condition. And 100 is essentially that the road is a brand new road. Every roadway, every street within the city gets one of these values, and we update these values yearly. The city hires a consultant to survey the condition of the roadway, and we take that information, input it into our pavement management software, and that helps us determine which projects to do based on our budget for the year. We also take into consideration the age of the street and how it was constructed. For our street projects, we look 5 years ahead. Right now, if you go to the city website, you can view our 5-year CIP plan and see all the street improvement projects we're proposing to do. So we use our pavement management software, consider age and history of the road, and we develop a 5-year plan. It tells us what streets we should do and how we can get the most out of our tax dollars. One of the ways we use our money the most efficiently is by performing major maintenance at critical points during the life of the street. Specifically, this happens when we are able to perform what is called a mill and overlay. And I'll explain this type of project and several others on the next slide. Before I go into more depth on the pavement condition index, I'd like to explain the 3 main types of projects we typically perform. These are called a mill and overlay, a rehab, and a reconstruction. A mill and overlay is the simplest of the 3 types of projects. During a mill and overlay, we remove the top couple inches of pavement using a milling machine, and then we put down a couple inches of new bituminous pavement, or that's also called asphalt pavement. During these projects, we're also required by law to update the sidewalk and pedestrian ramps at intersections to make them ADA compliant. We will replace certain sections of curb if it isn't draining, or if it is significantly damaged or broken up. We will also make repairs to storm sewer inlets and manholes if needed. Again, it is important to note that a mill and overlay project is the most cost-effective project we have. We get the most life out of our roads for the least amount of money. A mill and overlay on average will cost a little over $3 per square foot of roadway. The next type of project that we do is called a rehab. This is where we will replace the entire pavement section, but we will leave the curb and gutter largely in place. We will do spot repairs on the curb and gutter and make the ADA updates and storm sewer improvements on this type of project as well. This project is more involved than a mill and overlay, and on average costs a little more than $12.50 per square foot of roadway. A reconstruction is the same as a rehab, except we will completely replace the curb and gutter. This is the most complex type of project we will do and typically costs an average of a little over $16 per square foot of roadway. Now that I've given a little detail on the types of projects we do, I'm going to explain when we typically do these types of projects and how it relates to the PCI. Over time and from use, the PCI of any given street will decrease. From time to time, we will perform maintenance on the street. The type of maintenance depends on several factors, but is largely based off the PCI. The chart on this slide shows how our maintenance strategies change based off of PCI values. On the top, you can see that the PCI values are going from 100 to 0, so from best to worst. As you read from top to bottom, you can see our different strategies and how they change as the PCI gets lower. For the early years of pavement, we do minor maintenance, so just crack sealing and seal coating. And FYI, sometimes seal coating is called a chip seal. When the PCI drops into the 70s, we start to look at more of a significant maintenance, such as a mill and overlay in order to bring that PCI back up again. If a PCI is even lower, a mill and overlay will not be the most cost-effective type of project. At that point, we will look at more extensive projects where we might replace the entire pavement section, which this type of project is called a rehab. Or similarly, we would replace the entire pavement section and replace all of the curb and gutter as well, and this would be called a reconstruction. Generally, the lower the PCI, the worse condition the road is in, and the more extensive and expensive the project will be. On this slide is a graph that compares PCI versus time. The purpose of the graph is to show the importance of the maintenance, specifically of our mill and overlay projects. As I mentioned before, the mill and overlay type project is the most cost-effective project type that we are able to do. If we are able to perform that type of project at critical points in the life of the road, we not only spend the least amount of money, but we can extend the life of the street for a number of years. The graph compares two scenarios, a street with maintenance and a street without maintenance. The blue line is a street without any mill and overlay maintenance performed on it. It starts at a PCI value of 100 and over time decreases. Once it hits 30, we would reconstruct the road, and this cycle is shown twice. The orange line represents a road that does have a mill and overlay maintenance performed on it. You can see a couple important points on this graph. We would try to do a mill and overlay at those important points, right around the PCI of 60. When we perform that work, the road is repaired and the PCI is increased back up to 100, and you can see that the cycle is repeated twice. Eventually, the mill and overlay won't be effective, and we will let the roadway decrease down to a PCI of 30, where we would then do a reconstruction. Across the bottom of the graph are several blue and orange arrows that represent the life cycles of the roads. These arrows are showing that a road with mill and overlay maintenance actually extends the life of the road, meaning it is a longer period of time before we need to reconstruct it. Not only do we extend the life of the road, but based on the data that we have from past projects, we know that we will spend less money on maintaining our roads when we do it this way, and the condition of the road will be maintained at a higher level as well. The average PCI of a road with no maintenance is 68, and the average PCI of a road with mill and overlay maintenance is 73. Now we will get to the project-specific information. Shown on this slide is a portion of our 5-year CIP map, which includes all of the projects we're proposing to do in the next 5 years. I have circled the project 21E. That is the project in your neighborhood. The scope of project 21E includes 15th, 16th, and 17th Street South between 12th and 20th Avenue South, 14th Avenue South between 14th and 17th Street South, and 18th Avenue South between 15th and 16th Street South. The history on these streets is fairly straightforward. All streets in the project area were constructed in the 1950s. There were seal coats on these streets in the mid-2000s. Outside of that, there hasn't been any major maintenance items or repairs. If you take a look at the PCIs on the graph on the lower right-hand corner of this slide, you can see that 14th Avenue South and 15th Street South has an average PCI of 62. 16th Street South has an average PCI of 69. 17th Street South has an average PCI of 46, and 18th Avenue South with an average PCI of 43. We also have non-compliant curb ramps in this area, in which we are required by law to update when we come through and do a project like this. And there is also drainage issues on the curb and gutter, in which we will remove and replace to improve drainage. The sidewalks in this area are also in bad condition overall and will require improvements. This picture shows the type of work that we are proposing to do in your neighborhood. 15th Street South, 16th Street South, 17th Street South, from 12th Ave South to 14th Ave South, and 14th Avenue South are all proposed to be mill and overlay projects. 17th Street South from 14th to 16th Avenue South is proposed to be a reconstruction project, and 18th Avenue South and 17th Street South from 16th to 20th Avenue South is a rehab project. Moorhead Public Service and Xcel Energy will also be working in this area to replace old water and gas mains. When we remove the pavement from the road, it is typically a very good time to replace or repair utilities. Moorhead Public Service and Xcel Energy will be doing just that. It's also worth noting that the street project, the water main project, and the natural gas project are three distinct projects with separate contracts, and they probably will all have different contractors as well. Now that you know what type of construction projects are going to be going on in your neighborhood, please review the frequently asked questions that follow this presentation. I'll also provide my contact information, so my email and phone number will be on the following page. And if you have any input, any suggestions on anything, either send me an email or give me a call. We'd like to ask for your feedback by March 15th. And any questions on special assessments can actually be directed to Amy Weigel, and her email and phone number is provided on the next page as well. So here's our contact information. And again, just wanted to remind you, stay on after this slide. We're going to go through several frequently asked questions with answers. So it should answer most of your questions on the project. If you have anything additional, like I said, feel free to reach out to me, either email or phone. And thank you very much for listening to this presentation.